Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for the interest in the work of our observer mission on the second round of the presidential election that took place yesterday. My name is Tamas Meszerics. I have the privilege of heading the observer mission from the OSCE Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, as it was mentioned earlier. I'll begin by taking you through the introduction to the preliminary statement that we are issuing on this occasion, and we'll go in more detail of some of the key aspects of the observation, obviously not all of them, so you'll find the preliminary statement in full later on at the end of the press conference. So the introductory paragraph to the statement reads as, "In a competitive runoff, candidates were able to campaign freely and enjoyed equal opportunities to reach out to voters. However, their harsh rhetoric and biased coverage of the campaign by some media did not contribute to the ability of voters to make an informed choice. The law lacks explicit regulation on almost all aspects of the second round, and important clarifications were not given on the regulation of campaign finance, the media, detracting from legal certainty. Still, the election administration implemented provisional solutions on a number of procedural issues, which addressed some of the legislative gaps and adequately managed the process. In general, election day proceeded orderly and the voting process was well administered," reads the introductory paragraph. Before I go into our findings in more detail, I'd like to emphasize the fact that I and the ODIHR team of election experts have been in Montenegro since early February, with the 14 long-term observers arriving who have been spread around the country, arriving just a week after. This has given us the opportunity to observe the run-up to the election closely and comprehensively. Let me also stress in this respect that our role here as observers is to assess the process leading up to yesterday's vote and not the result. And this process very much matters because it is only the quality of the process that can ensure that the results credibly reflect the will of the voters in this and in every other election. To strengthen the democratic process going forward, the country urgently needs to work on its legal framework to fill the vacuum that currently exists. This is one of our key findings, as it is only in this way that transparency and accountability can be ensured. We found that regulation is lacking on almost all aspects of the second round, including the election administration, voter registration, the campaign and campaign finance and the media. All of this led to considerable legal uncertainty. I'd also like to reiterate that the Parliament has not updated the election law since 2014, and long-standing recommendations from ODIHR and the Venice Commission to bring legislation further in line with international standards and OSCE commitments for democratic elections remain unaddressed. On a related topic related to campaign finance, the current law does not regulate campaign finance enough for the second round. In addition, candidates were not adequately informed about their obligations, potentially having a negative effect on accountability. Moving on, I would like to emphasize that fundamental freedoms of assembly and expression were respected ahead of the second round, as they were before the first round as well. While the tone of the campaign became harsher, with the candidates seeking to discredit each other in their messaging, the election campaign ahead of yesterday's vote took place in a generally calm atmosphere. Voters also had additional opportunities to learn about the candidates through televised debates. I want to mention also the media, which always forms an important and integral part of our long-term observation. Both candidates had equal access to the public media, and the public broadcaster moved its coverage of the campaign to its most watched channel, which we welcome. At the same time, it was noted that both local public broadcasters as well as private media were biased in their coverage, which made it more difficult for voters to access impartial information when making their choice on election day. In general, the polarization of the media landscape means that media outlets remain highly vulnerable to internal and external influences from corporate and political interests. Finally, I must stress that today is not the end of this election observation mission. In the coming weeks, we will still be working on the final report that will contain recommendations to the authorities to improve the process for the future. This will be published some 2 months from now. Before I close, I would like to express my gratitude to the authorities for the invitation to observe in the first place and the good cooperation we had over the entire course of the election observation. I'd also like to thank our partners in the International Election Observation Mission from the European Parliament and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the team of experts working with me here in Podgorica for all their hard work, as well as the observers spread around across the country. So I'm trained in history and sort of have my degrees in history. I can't claim any detailed knowledge of Montenegrin coats of arms and state symbols, but I have heard that one of the versions of the flags is rather the old Montenegrin kingdom's flag than of any foreign state. This still may have a different meaning to different parts in the country, which I admit. This is a possibility. Beyond that, however, what I have seen, and I haven't seen too much, just only some of it in the center of Podgorica, was a peaceful celebration. I did not feel, as an outsider, intimidated by what was going on, and we still haven't received complaints to that effect, as far as I understand. So I would also like to emphasize that this was the elections went through in a very calm atmosphere, and although we do not compare elections within countries or across countries, I can't resist saying, because I was here on the 2020 elections as well, that this was a fraction of what happened as celebration on the 1st of September 2020.